Yes, you can. Yes, there are ways around all this type of stuff. You can claim, depends what you claim as expenses. Like, and it depends where the money comes from as well, I guess. If you're doing the tour on funding, for example, then then you'll have to offset your expenses through that, right?
Going over there as a little business, they're taking a percentage of your gross, kind of up there, maybe they didn't make any profit, or maybe a much smaller profit. But did they make some expenses, show what they really did there?
Yeah, you can. You can be creative in your accounting, like anyone else. It depends what you fill in the form. And from the few times I've done this, they seem to trust you on what you say. I think that, to be honest, it's not worth their time if you're not making any money, right? They're not going to make any money off you if you're making £1,000, and they know that, and it takes them time to do the paperwork. But this is for artists that are making more substantial amounts of money, or companies that are making more substantial amounts of money. But don't ignore the system. Trust me on that. Make sure that you understand that you'll have to do this. Mm-hmm.
Let's say it's not tied into performance, it's just a straight sync deal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They buy some music to put it in whatever, film or television show. So do you still have to follow that whole 30 days thing? Or?
Yes. Well, that will be done through the company that licenses it. They'll make you fill out this form, and then they'll sort it out. If you go through a major promoter, it's the promoter that will be dealing with it. But some promoters or agents they miss this, and you have to make sure that it's done. But you usually go through the major promoter. It's more of a pain if you're making money independently, because then you have to do it yourself. That's what I've realized. So any major promoter that I just said, Live Nation, SJM, all these types, they'll do it for you, and they should remind you of that. And if they don't, you have to make sure that they're aware that you have to do this. So I'm happy to answer more questions. I think I've got to hurry up. What? Yeah. Get on my horses. This one will be quick. There's lots and lots of showcases in the UK. There's lots of showcases across Europe too. Obviously, if you apply for showcase, if you can access showcase funding through Factor, then it's a very, very good idea to be anchoring your tour with a showcase. There's a list of showcases on the Canadian Blast website, canadianblast.com, across Europe. The main ones in the UK, the biggest one's The Great Escape within the indie world. There's In the City, there's Liverpool Sound City, there's more. There's Folk Arts England, which is a folk one. There's Muse Expo, and so on and so forth. But they are, to me, I believe that they're one of the best entry points for emerging bands to enter into, because the people that you want to be pitching to, your market is there, or it should be there, or an element of it is there, depending on the showcase. So just saying that CIMA, we help administer all these showcases across Europe. I have relationships with all of them, and we try to get more Canadian artists into them, just in general. But it's also based on merit, and the festival chooses who they want. But you have to make sure that you apply in advance. It's better to make personal contact with the festival directors in addition to applying on Sonic Bids if they choose that they want you to apply on Sonic Bids. Often just applying on Sonic Bids means nothing. You have to make sure that you have personal contact, that they know who you are with anything. And top showcases, everyone has different opinions, but within the contemporary music market, probably The Great Escape in Brighton in May is the best at ensuring that the right people are there, I would say. The Folk Arts England Conference for folk artists is really good. It's sort of like the OCFF of England. And the largest traditional music conference in Europe is Celtic Connections. And don't be dismayed by the name. There's lots of different types of music at Celtic Connections. They had Bell and Sebastian play 2 years ago. So we went through this. So essentially, how to get a VAT refund. How to get a VAT refund. The best way that I've learned how to get your VAT back, if you have to pay VAT on anything, VAT is the tax, is like their GST and PST together. Value-added tax is to go through an accountant to do so. But maybe Val can help with that, Val, and who's British. But it's always important that you try to get your VAT back on things if you're paying a lot of VAT. VAT is 18.5% in the UK. So, and there's something SOCAN, there is, when it comes to copyright, make sure that you're registering your shows with SOCAN. That's really important. That's and SOCAN will then account through PRS. right? And make sure that you get your money back down the line. And this is the last thing, a checklist for export. So this is pretty much everything that I've said. So first off, obviously you have to make sure that you understand and you know how to treat your product in the climate in which you're treating it in. Branding is incredibly important, and knowing your audience is incredibly important. Make sure, one thing that I've learned is the best people are the ones who know how not to waste people's time. Simple. If you know how to get in there and you know how to say it in 2 sentences and you can get your point across, then you're better suited. If it takes you longer, like it's taking me obviously, then you have to rethink how you're approaching the people that you want to align yourself with. Simple. I said the power of image and its importance. UK is a very image-based culture. You know, attractive people sell records. And branding and how your band looks is very important. Bands that look like crap, unless that's exactly what you're trying to get at, usually don't sell very well. And your band shots and your image is really, really important. Really important. You know, the Daily Star, for example, is a terrible tabloid newspaper, but it has a huge readership. And they won't put in anyone that doesn't look good. Trust me on that. When I was dealing with Bjork, we had problems with press because they liked certain shots and they didn't like other shots and so on and so forth. Saying understanding government funding and learning how to write a grant application. Obviously, if you can access money for your infrastructural development, then you're better off than people who can't. And I don't agree with paying someone to write your grants. That's lazy. Learn how to write grant applications because you're going to be writing grant applications. And learn the system and the deadlines and when things are available, because you can align yourself with different showcases. And if you understand the system better and you understand what's available when, then you will be able to manipulate it better. The importance of finished masters. For the most part, no one really pays to have you record an album anymore in the UK unless you're of a major label sort of world. So make sure that you're approaching people with finished masters. For the most part, I would say 9 times out of 10, you can go with demos and then they'll say, all right, we're excited to hear the album. That's what I see a lot. Scheduling and routing and knowing your limits. The UK is a small market geographically compared to Canada, obviously, but it's still a bit of a pain to tour sometimes. And for example, it's not worth going up to Glasgow to play 1 gig from London. It's still a 7-hour drive. And there are places in the UK that are slightly hard to get to just because of the way the roads work. So make sure that you work with your agent and you work with your team to properly route a tour. In addition to that, you have to understand the costs involved. You have to understand that you have to get a backline, and that costs money. You have to understand that you have to rent a van. Someone's got to drive it, and it's probably going to be stick. So someone in the touring party needs to learn how to drive standard vehicles on the other side of the road. Yeah, or you hire someone, and that costs more money. So you have to factor in all these costs and make sure that you write a budget for your tours. Simple. So we have at CIMA, I have special deals with all these things. I can get cheap backline, I can get cheap van rentals, I can find drivers, all these types of things because we have these contacts, right? But just beware that these are avenues that you're going to be going down. Saying driving licenses, it's fine to drive with a Canadian driver's license. And there are such things called international driver's licenses that you can get through the AA. They're useless. Don't spend the money. They don't really make a difference. Canadian driver's license is fine. And I went into tour books and rentals. Passports have to be valid for 6 months on average. So make sure that you always have up-to-date passports. Always bring your birth certificate with you as well. Get health insurance. This is important. Make sure that you have travel health insurance if you're on tour, whether it be through a company plan or individually, because God forbid something happens and you're not covered. And these things happen. And it's better to get travel insurance as well on flights and on van rental and splitter rental and stuff like that. I've learned, because you never know what can happen. You don't want to be liable for things when you don't have to be liable for things. So moving forward, this is the last thing. I'm just saying that one thing that I've learned that really works is having a non-expiring download link to your product. If it's like a send space or a you send it, it's fine, but it's a lot easier for someone to click. I hate box.net. Hate it when people